All right, before we get started, I want to get everyone energized, so stand up. Let's stand up for a little bit. All right? So what I want you to do is I want you to jump up and down a little bit, shake out your arms. Go ahead. I want to get everyone energized. I know it's a long day, but the fact that you're here today tells me that you're pretty serious about your entrepreneurial venture. Stretch it out. Stretch your arms out. Breathe. Breathe. Very good. All right. You feel better? All right, let's get started. My name is John, and I'm co-presenting with Charles today. I'm going to talk to you about a very, very important topic. You may have a great idea. You may have a great pitch. You may have a great business, a great service. What good is it going to be if you cannot communicate that to your audience? Whether you're speaking to a group of investors, potential business partners, or more importantly, or equally important, you're talking to customers. So we're going to talk about public speaking. And let's start here, because a lot of people think about public speaking, they think about what comes out of your mouth. But actually, public speaking begins with your body language. Your body language is very important. So I'm going to give you an illustration. If this person were here today speaking to you, and let's say that that's how they're standing, call out, what's wrong with this? Or what do you observe? Anybody? Yeah. No eye contact. Very good. What else? What is she holding? She's holding a phone, right? She's not engaged with her audience. What else? Anything else? There's one subtle one. I want to know if anyone can pick up on this. Look at where she's standing. She's actually directing her body language to the side, okay? When you are presenting to your audience, you're having a conversation. I know it sounds funny to say that because sometimes you're the only one speaking, but I guarantee you're having a conversation. Sales can be won or lost within the first 3 seconds of engagement or failure to engage. So the first principle is be open. Your body language should be open. This person here has body language that's very closed. It says to me, I don't want to engage with you. Your body language should always be open to your audience. Squares, shoulders. Your shoulders should be level. I find that when I'm giving a speech or presentation, my feet are about shoulder length or shoulder width. Not too close together, not too far apart. Shoulder width will keep your center of gravity centered. Okay? Your arms, your hands, don't close them. Don't put them in your pockets. Don't put them behind you. That says I'm closed. Open up your hands. Think of your hands as the window through which your audience will be looking at. And make eye contact. I learned this by watching some of the best presidential speeches, that some of the most dynamic presidents will actually be in a room of 50 people and they will make eye contact with every single person, even if just for a few seconds. Be receptive. Being receptive goes on top of being open. Your body language should say to the person you're speaking to or to the room, I am receptive. I want to engage. I want to connect with you. By the time you're finished with your speech or presentation, that person should want your business card, your LinkedIn profile, your WeChat account, everything. That starts with being receptive. If you're not receptive, then you're not laying the groundwork for a relationship. Be engaging. This one's important. Every time you have an opportunity to speak to someone, whether it's one person or 100, you should be excited. If you have been working on a product or service, you should be excited, because if you're not excited about it, how is anyone else going to be? So I want you to take a look at this example here. This is a much better example. Now, this gentleman here, take a look at his body language. He's facing the audience. His shoulders are square. His feet are about shoulder width. Even though he's holding up something, he's holding it up, not in front of his face, not to the side, not too low. He's holding it centered. This is someone who is open, receptive, engaging. All right, let's talk about another important aspect. How many of you get nervous whenever you have to go in front of a crowd to speak? Raise your hand. You can be honest. A lot of you, right? It can be really, really nerve-wracking when you have to give a speech or a presentation. Why? Because you've got so many ideas, you have only so limited time, and you want to get them all out. So I'm going to give you a tip that really helped me become a better speaker and presenter. What I'd like you all to do is take a deep breath. Inhale. Hold it. Exhale. Try that again. Try that on your own. Notice how calming it is when you take a breath. We breathe all the time. It's what keeps us alive. But when you get up to give a speech or a presentation, your body sometimes goes into panic mode, right? And I've seen people who start hyperventilating and they can't get a single word out because of breathing. So I'm going to give you one of my best tips. I did this before I actually started my TEDx speech this year. So I was invited to not only give a TEDx talk, but I was the first one to go. I got up on stage, there were over 100 people out there, and before I said a single word, I took a breath. Whenever you have to give a speech or a presentation, your mind is telling you, talk right away. I'm going to tell you, take a breath first. If you take a breath before you say your first word, it'll do two things. Number one, it will calm your nerves. It'll make you less nervous. Number two, it'll allow you to collect your thoughts so that the first words out will be the ones that you really intended to communicate. So you're just not talking for the sake of talking. Here's another thing. When I tell people to breathe, it's so funny because when you breathe, you don't think about it. But a lot of times when I tell someone to breathe, they do this. But when you breathe, you don't raise your shoulders up. And in fact, if you do this, you're actually constricting your airways. When you breathe, your shoulders should always be in the same position. What you want to do is extend your diaphragm, fill up your stomach. You should feel it filling up and then let it out like a balloon. Diaphragm, not shoulders. And here's probably one of my most powerful tips that I'm going to give you today. The thoughtful pause. When you're speaking, our tendency is to try to fill up every second with a word. Because I feel like I've got to say this because I might forget it. Or I have so much to say, I don't know if I have enough time. But I will tell you, sometimes when you're making a point, take a pause to let it sink in. Don't just keep talking. Take a pause. Or if you're about to make a really big point, take a pause. Build the suspense. Remember, you're having a conversation. Even if the other person isn't talking to you, they are receiving what you are communicating. A thoughtful pause can be a very powerful tool. Let's talk about actual speaking technique. Project. I can't emphasize this one enough. If the person in the back of the room can't hear you, you are losing half of your audience. Project. Make sure you have good body language, not hunched over, back straight, good posture, shoulders square, and you breathe. That's how you get projection. You don't get projection by screaming or yelling. You get it by good, confident body language and breathing. Slow it down. This is another thing that I see a lot of speakers do, especially people who are not used to speaking on stage. They get so nervous, they get so much adrenaline, so much energy that they speak too quickly. In fact, when you're nervous, you're more likely to speak too fast than too slow. So my suggestion to you is when you are practicing your speech, slow it down. In fact, I've had situations where someone is so excited about their project that they're explaining it to me. They're going, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? Okay, because I haven't gotten any of it. I will tell you a secret. When you have limited time, and I'm going to give you an exercise where you're really going to be tested on this. When you have limited time and you have too much to say in that limited time, pick 2 or 3 important points. You may not be able to cover everything, but it's more important that those 2 or 3 big ideas land than if you rattle off 10 ideas and none of them do. Slow it down. Breathe. I can't emphasize this one enough. When you get nervous, or when you're up on stage and you're selling your product or service, or you're pitching it to an investor, breathe. Breathe. That will help you center your body and center your mind. Okay? And here's my best tip. People ask me all the time, John, how are you able to get up in front of several hundred people and give a speech? And it's not really any big secret, but the secret to any speech or presentation is this: practice, practice, practice. People ask me, how many times should I practice my speech before I actually go on stage? 7 is the magic number that I have discovered throughout my career. I've given over 100 speeches, 8 keynotes, and 1 TEDx. 7 I have found to be the magic number. If you only do it once, you don't have enough comfortable command of the material to be confident. If you do it 2 or 3 times, you're getting better, but you still are a little bit nervous. 5 times is pretty good. 5 times, you're probably pretty comfortable with what you're going to say, but there's still a little bit of that nervous energy. 2 more times, 7 times, and you'll knock it out of the park. Someone once asked me, John, what about if I do more than 7? I want to do 10 or 15. I recommend if you go too many practices, it's going to sound too rehearsed. It's going to sound too stiff. 7 is good because you're comfortable, but yet you're still flexible enough to take in the environment, take in the people who are in the room, and really, really connect with them. If you do too many, you're not going to connect. Okay, wardrobe. You asked me to cover this because I think this is really important, especially if you're starting out as an entrepreneur. What you wear is important. Just like your body language, it's part of your first impression. Fit it to function to environment. So think about it. If I am speaking in front of a group of entrepreneur investors, venture capitalists here in the DC area or up in New York, I'm probably going to wear a very traditional suit. However, if I were in California and I lived in Los Angeles for 2 years, and I'm speaking with a 20-something-year-old founder of a tech company, they're probably going to be wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and a blazer. Fit your wardrobe to function to environment, because it can make a difference. This is something I learned from my parents, both of them who are in the fashion industry. Now, for men, it's really hard when you're wearing a suit and everyone's wearing a suit that looks exactly like yours. Gray, blue, black. Add a little splash of color to make it stand out. Examples might be a red handkerchief, maybe a different colored tie. One of the things that I wear when I give speeches and presentations is a gift that I got. It's a key fob. It's a watch fob. This is an old-fashioned kind of watch, so not many people wear this, but I have people coming up to me asking about it because it stands out a little bit. Add a little bit of splash to stand out in your wardrobe. For women, I think it's a little bit easier. Sometimes you have an accented scarf, you have some jewelry. For guys, do the same thing. Add a little accent to stand out. Oops. All right, let's talk about the first impressions. And Charles and I are going to talk to you about the importance of first impressions because you only get to make one. The key to making a good first impression is knowing the answer to this question. What is your story? Right? When you have a chance, if you haven't already, take a look at Steve Jobs' first keynote where he talked about the first iPhone. Steve Jobs is probably one of the most prolific storytellers of our era. He didn't talk about a telephone. He didn't talk about an MP3 player. He didn't talk about a computer. He talked about a device that would solve problems and change the way we interact with the world. That was a story that he told with Apple. What is the story that you are telling? Because every time you get up, you're not just rattling facts, you're not just rattling figures, you're not just selling your product or your service. You are telling a story. What is a story? Well, it's pretty simple. It's a beginning, middle, and end. Everything should have an arc. Every time you talk to someone, every time you engage with someone, you should have a story. And when you're selling a product or service, it's really simple. What is the problem you are trying to solve? There is a problem that the market has, and you have a solution. That is the key to story. Watch any movie. Star Wars, Marvel, DC. They all follow the same pattern. Beginning, middle, and end. Conflict resolution. Think about it in terms of that when you're telling your story. And make it memorable. One of the things that I've done throughout today, and I'm going to say it again, is breathe. They say that when you speak to a group, it takes 3 times before it sinks in. And I've emphasized to you over and over, breathing. Call back to concepts from the beginning. Anchor it, tie it, make it a complete story. All right, the flip side to making a first impression are mistakes to avoid. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles, and he is got incredible experience in biotech and business development. He's going to talk about 5 mistakes to avoid when you're making that first impression.
Hi everyone, and thank you John for bringing me to this stage and talking about some mistakes that young entrepreneur, not even young entrepreneur, even entrepreneur like me for the past several years are still making these mistakes. First one is multiply big numbers by 1%. Sometimes the entrepreneur kind of approach the investor said, how hard do you think I'm going to do with only 1% of the market? Actually, you're making a mistake. The mistake is that the first 1% of the market is really, really hard to get. From 0 to 1 is the hardest part, even then from 1 to 100. This is the first mistake that I want to point out. So the solution for the first one is you need to know the big market, but you need to put the number bottom up by how many customers you're going to attract and how many of them you can convert them to make their purchase for your product service. And when the bottom up and top down calculation meets the same number, that you get it right, and the investor can believe that you are knowing it from a big or small. Next one is proceed serially. And when you approach an investor, you said, investor gonna ask you how you proceed your business. You said, I'm gonna raise money first, and I'm gonna build up my team. And the third one is I make sales, go public. No, it's wrong story to tell. The story you need to tell is I'm gonna raise my money, get sales, build my team. At the same time, I'm going to school. You're parallel. So time is the most valuable thing. They don't want to give you money, then you proceed. So the third one, John. The third one is be friend with investors. You said I make friends with the investors, so they probably gonna invest in me more easily, but you're in a wrong impression. Investors engage with entrepreneur. You have to know your role as a means to the end. The means is they use you as the tool to make profit. So think it in another way. If they have their expectations, as long as you meet investors' expectation, your friendship is gonna be, your relationship between each other is gonna be very friendly. But if you don't meet the expectations and you're a friend, imagine we are friends to each other, but as I am your friend but not meeting your expectation, the relationship is kind of awkward. You don't want that. Before you can meet their expectation, try not to make friends with them, right? So you are the means to their goals. So next one. And sometimes I saw a lot of entrepreneur goes with a very big partnership kind of slides. And you're too focused on your partnership. Unless the partnership bring you the revenue, or they can lower your cost, all the partnership is just blowing smoke. It's make you look bigger, but not substantial. Investors don't even want to talk about it. And whenever you want to bring up partnership, you have to kind of support it with evidence. What you're going to do with the partnership, what the partnership end up driving your business, making revenues and cost, and lower your cost. That's the partnership you want to bring up. The last one is you use patents to defend yourself. But for 90% of business, patent means nothing. You cannot go, even you have the patent, how you can win a lawsuit with those evil guys like Microsoft or those guys that don't be evil like Google. So unless you're in a biotech, which need 20 or tens of years to build a kind of proprietary stuff, patents won't protect you that much. So what you need to do is show the sales. Show how you sell and scale with your business at the forefront. That can defend you more. And the last one, I want to show an example of, since your next session is going to be that's pitching to the investor. This is a very simple ways that you can clarify yourself in 1 to 3 minutes. First one is that's what you do with one sentences. And as John just mentioned, you need to point out the present problem and with your solutions. And then now you project the market. This is the big market, how much share you want to take with it, and your competitors. And it's this kind of a high level for what your market and sales approach you want, and the most important things within several years, how you're going to make money back. And with that, and you're building your team at the same time, you're not even mentioning you want the money to do so. If you don't want it and you say make money, investor go after you. Right? And unless you're in a very technical driven and you need to another strategy. And with that, I want to end my part of presentation and then just go forward.
I want you to know that if you want to work with either Charles or myself, we do offer individual coaching. The best way to access, and you can take a photo of this, are these web addresses here. We do coaching calls. I do coaching calls specifically on public speaking. I've taught many people over the years, including native speakers and those where English is their second language. Charles, very well versed if you want to call him about business development, entrepreneurial stuff, or doing business with China. I mean, that's his wheelhouse. He knows a lot of BD. Feel free to connect with us. Our LinkedIn profiles are available via QR code. You can snap a shot or you can just scan that. And I want to be respectful of time, and I want to make sure that I end on time. So I just want to say thank you very much. If you have questions, do feel free to reach out to me by LinkedIn. And again, if you need an additional coaching call, happy to provide that. You have that information. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.